Hello. If you've been watching my videos of late, you'll probably know that I've just returned from a trip to England, visiting English wineries and vineyards. It was an amazing trip, and one that made me realise that England is suddenly producing actually some world-class wine, certainly in the area of its sparkling wines. However, comparable changes can also be seen in the quality of some of the still wines being produced. So today I wanted to take a look at a Chardonnay from a winery that's arguably England's foremost producer of Chardonnays and possibly even Pinot Noirs as well. This is Danbury Ridge from the Crouch Valley in Essex. This is their 2022 Chardonnay. And in some ways I'm sort of coming to terms with the fact that England actually can produce world-class Chardonnays. So hopefully you'll watch through to the end and see what you make of my tasting of this wine. Now, this is also the fourth wine that I've brought back from the UK to New Zealand in my VinGardeValise. And the idea of doing that was to just prove that the quality of the wines doesn't suffer as a result of transit on commercial airliners from one side of the world to the others. So the suitcase will have been shaken around in airport baggage handling systems, taken a few knocks probably. It will have sat in the cold hold of an aircraft flying to Dubai. There it will have been transferred to another aircraft in the heat of a Dubai day to again sit for a period of about 16 hours from Dubai to Auckland in a very cold aeroplane hold. Now, as I say, this is the fourth wine I've looked at that I've brought back with me, and I've not seen any problems with the other three, so I think it's unlikely this wine's going to reveal anything different. However, I did want to see this process to its end. So to talk about Danbury Ridge Wine Estate, it was established in 2012 by the Bunker family. And planting came about as a result of some extensive feasibility studies looking both at the soils and the climates of this area in the Crouch Valley in Essex. A real focus was also put on ensuring that they had the right clones, both of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. They only grow Chardonnay and Pinot Noir to exploit the particular mesoclimate of this region. And really, it's quite amazing quite how quickly the vines here were consistently producing fruit with a quality and a ripeness level that was hitherto unseen in the UK. Now, the estate currently manages 25 hectares of vines, and I believe they've got a further 5.5 hectares that they're looking to plant in the next year. And this is spread across 6 vineyard sites that sit both to the north and the south of the River Crouch. Now, one of the things that's special about this area is that the soils comprise quite a large amount of smectite rich London clay. Just in case, like me, you've not really come across the expression smectite before, these are swelling clays that are very good at absorbing water. The soils also contain gravels and a certain amount of alluvial deposits. Just to put this in perspective, these smectite rich swelling clays are famously a feature of the soils of Pomerol. You also see them in the Hunter Valley in Australia, where they're very good for growing top Semillon. And locally, here in New Zealand, these swelling clays are also found in the vineyards of dcamw, where they make one or two quite good Chardonnays. Now, the region has a coastally moderated climate, and it's quite different from a lot of the rest of the UK. As actually they have a long dry growing season, and that's what gives this consistent ability to get good ripeness and concentration in the fruit. Just to put this in context, the examples I was shown, the Crouch Valley has more sunshine, measured as what they call growing degree days, so it's the number of days in the growing season that gets over a certain temperature, than, for instance, the Tamar Valley in Tasmania, or than you get in Bannockburn in central Otago in New Zealand's South Island. Now, to be fair, the Crouch Valley does have slightly more rainfall than we see here in central Otago, but there's less rainfall here than there is in Tasmania's Tamar Valley. So this is a climate that's quite comparable to other regions where Pinot Noir and Chardonnay thrive. So the grapes for this particular wine are sourced from 2 vineyards, and these are the most easterly blocks in the Danbury Ridge estate. And they have loamy soils containing this carbonate-rich clay. So these vineyards are called Schleipnir and Spa Hill. And actually, although they're identified as being in the Crouch Valley for winemaking purposes, they actually overlook the River Blackwater, which is slightly to the north of the River Crouch. And they were picked for the fact that their soils have an ideal mix of London clay, sand, and alluvial silt. And this mix resulted in deep, rich soils that had both suitable drainage and good heat retention. And these are soils that prove ideal for Chardonnay. 2022 was a long, hot, dry summer. Evidently at one location in the estate, they refer to as the polo field. Temperatures exceeded 41 degrees Celsius on the 19th of July. Total rainfall for June, July and August amounted to just 10 millimetres, and that then makes the water holding qualities of these soils very important. Now, temperatures in September and October fell back to much more normal values, and that slowed ripening, helping to give a long season. However, rainfall did remain low across September and October. That meant the fruit was healthy, there was no botrytis, but also that both berries and bunches were small. The fruit here was all hand-picked, and the health of the fruit meant that there was very little sorting needed. The approach to winemaking here is relatively low intervention. They've adopted gravity flow wherever possible, so they're not having to pump juice or wine. The wine's 100% Chardonnay, and it was whole bunch pressed. Now, sometimes when you're whole bunch pressing, you're trying to get nice clean juice, but actually the juice was immediately transferred into barrel, leaving it turbid. The barrels used were 228 litre French oak barrels. The style of barrels used in Burgundy, 40% of those barrels were new, 60% had been used for 1 or 2 vintages previously. Fermentation went ahead with full solids, and a portion, I don't know what proportion, of the ferments were instigated by the indigenous yeasts that had made their way into the vineyard on the fruit or were already present in the winery. Following barrel fermentation, the wine stayed in barrel for a period of 12 months, being stirred occasionally to keep those lees in suspension to help feed the wine, give some richness and roundness to the structure. The wine underwent malolactic conversion in barrel, and then the wine was racked. Racking took place once, and that was when the wine was transferred after 12 months from barrel into tank. It was left in tank for a further 6 months to continue aging with its gross lees. The wine was bottled without any fining, and this happened in April 2024. Production was 46 barrels, so a little over 1,100 cases were produced. So let's have a look at the wine and see what we make of it, shall we? First thing I'd say is this is a pale to medium yellow colour with perhaps just the slightest green hints there, but there's no lack of intensity to the colour there. Swirling it, the wine has 13.5% alcohol according to its label, and certainly seems to show some good body in terms of its consistency. And yes, now it's clinging to the side of the glass and throwing some quite obvious tears, but it's taking a little while to do that. So let's see what we make of the aromas, shall we? The aromas are intense, complex and really quite exciting. There are some top notes of sort of lime flower. There's clearly some oak notes there. There are sort of notes of vanilla, cedar. In terms of fruit, you've got some lovely ripe yellow peach notes, almost some apricot-y richness, but then also sort of a more lively pineapple note as well. There's plenty going on here. Perhaps there are also just some creamy hints of lees aging that I should be mentioning as well. So let's have a taste. The wine's dry, it's got some lovely crisp acidity. At the same time, it's also showing some nice fruit richness, which is filling out the mid palate. That's where I'm getting white peach notes, almost becoming rich and apricot-y as the fruit interacts with some sort of cedary and clean vanilla notes from the oak. The oak's quite pungent, and I'm wondering if it's standing out a bit too much. But actually, as I'm standing here, I'm seeing slightly more sort of butterscotch, buttery notes that are helping to harmonise quite pronounced oak notes with the richer stone fruit notes on the mid palate. So actually, by the time I'm getting to the finish, this is all quite nicely harmonised. At 13.5%, the alcohol actually seems quite well balanced with the rich fruit. The acidity is giving a lovely length, and what are now really nicely integrated flavours of ripe stone fruit and vanilla and cedary oak are giving a lovely long finish where there are spicy hints, and these flavours are really lasting extremely well. It's a very impressive wine. I do slightly wonder whether the fact that the oak stands out a little just at the beginning of the mid-palate may have something to do with the wine having travelled. I don't think its long-term quality has actually suffered at all. Certainly there were no signs of the cork having pushed and there being any seepage from being too hot, or the cork being sucked in, perhaps from the wine being stored too long in too cold an area. So I think the suitcase has done a good job of protecting it. This is still a young wine, and it may just have been slightly shocked as a result of travelling. It's only been back in this country for coming up to 4 weeks. So maybe there is a lesson for me there, that perhaps I should give young wines a little time to recover. But I don't think I have any long-term concerns whatsoever. The only thing is that if I look at the producer's notes, they suggest that this is a wine that can be enjoyed immediately and will continue to improve for 4 or 5 years. And the drinking window suggested for it reaches out to 2034. I'm actually fully convinced that it will continue to improve for that period, and I would be quite happy to keep it until it's a little over 10 years old. But I do think, however, maybe leaving it a year or two will just ensure that it's fully harmonised by the time you drink it. Having tried this wine in England, having tried it again now, tasting Danbury Ridge's Chardonnay really leaves me converted to the idea that there are some parts of England that can produce some of the best Chardonnays being produced anywhere around the world. Actually, if I have a criticism of the wine, the one thing I would say is it comes in a very heavy bottle. I don't think that's particularly environmentally friendly. I think if you're looking for a wine that stands out, this particular design, it has sort of 8 ridges around it there. And again, their logo is a broken 8. I think that's playing on the Chinese idea that the number 8 is supposed to be lucky. But I think when the wine is as good as this, you really don't need packaging gimmicks to sell it. To my mind, this has been an excellent experience. Having said that, when I looked at the Wine Searcher aggregated critics score for this wine, I found that it was only on 90 out of 100. While I'm beginning to think that maybe my enthusiasm for English wines is running away with my objectivity, I actually have to say, I think the intensity, the complexity, the quality and the length of flavour, I would be giving this wine a score of 93 out of 100. And I don't think that that's got anything to do with an overly positive bias on my part. So thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you found it of interest, and I do hope that some of you will have the opportunity to try this wine. I'm hugely impressed with it. I think it's lovely. I will certainly be buying more of it. So if you have enjoyed the video, do please remember to press the like button. That would be fantastic. If you have any friends you think need convincing about the quality of English wine, please feel free to pass the video on to them. If you have any comments, if you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments box below. I'd love to know what you think about these wines, and if you too have experienced the real improvement in quality that we've seen in English wine. If you're enjoying these tastings, do please consider signing up and subscribing to my YouTube channel. That would really help me to grow the channel and carry on improving what I'm doing. I will of course leave a link in the notes below to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine. That way you can see if it's available near you and at what price. So yes, once again, thank you so much for joining me, and I do hope that maybe you'll manage to make some time and come and join me for another tasting in the very near future. Till then, bye for now.